Hello and welcome along to Eye on Africa, our daily look across the continent here on France 24. Our main stories. In South Africa, at least 74 people are dead in Johannesburg after a fire at an abandoned apartment block that housed dozens of homeless people. It's one of the worst disasters of its kind in the city, where poverty and homelessness are widespread. And the African Union suspends Gabon after Wednesday's coup d'etat. The elite Republican Guard arrested President Ali Bongo shortly after he was declared winner of last weekend's contested elections. The junta says it will swear in a new transitional leader on Monday. Thanks very much for joining us here on France 24. We start in South Africa, where at least 74 people, including 12 children, have died in an overnight fire that engulfed a 5-story building in Johannesburg. The rundown apartment block had been abandoned but was being used by homeless people and squatters for shelter, as Vedika Bahel tells us. And we cannot bring you that news story for the moment. We will aim to bring it to you later on in the evening. Next up, Ivory Coast heads to the polls on Saturday for local elections, which are being billed as some of the most competitive and open in the country's history. It's seen the emergence of an unprecedented number of independent candidates. Most of them are from the major parties, but also many newcomers who are promising change, as our correspondents now report.
This is Israel Gabon, an independent candidate in Abobo, a neighborhood in Abidjan, meeting a youth group.
You have an expertise. You should start a small business and we will help with paper and the funding.
Israel works in media and is one of the youngest candidates in Ivory Coast's upcoming municipal elections. He hopes to win against the RHDP, the ruling party with a strong presence in this area.
For 10 years, parties have run this town, but we see the state in which it is. We talk to young people, we understand each other, we get along.
Since the death of Félix Houphouët-Boigny, Ivory Coast's first president, who is also popularly regarded as the father of the nation, all the leaders who have come after him have been the ones who dominated the country's political space. 100 kilometers from the capital, in Tisali, the city's deputy mayor, Tiemoko Asali, is running for re-election as an independent candidate and hopes he gets to stay in office.
It is not a matter of who gets the town hall. It is a matter of what is our place in Ivory Coast in the future.
An advocate for several law reforms, Tiemoko has put forward proposals to prohibit candidates who are over 75 years from standing for election. He has also advocated for restrictions on executives of political parties running as independent candidates. Till date, none of Asali's bills have been considered by Parliament.
A report from our team in Ivory Coast. Well, let's now return to South Africa for one of our main stories this evening. At least 74 people, including 12 children, who have died overnight in a fire that engulfed a 5-story building in Johannesburg. Vedika Bahel has the latest.
Anxious residents look on at what used to be their home as emergency services recover bodies after a nighttime blaze tore through this building in central Johannesburg.
It was so difficult for us to escape, but I managed to get out with my kids, one who is 13 years old and the other who's 2. We did inhale quite a bit of smoke, but at least we managed to get out.
Some of the boys I found here, they got out through windows. Women and children were left behind and they died inside. We lost all our things and they got burnt, our papers and our money.
Beginning overnight, the fire ripped through 5 stories, spreading rapidly from floor to floor. The building was known as a hijacked building, an abandoned structure housing informal settlements of people, and is located in a deprived area in what used to be the business district. According to the provincial government, the tragedy represents a deeper issue that requires stronger solutions.
This for us demonstrates a chronic problem of housing in our province. As we've previously said, that there's at least 1.2 million people who need housing. We need to have a intergovernmental, comprehensive, integrated approach of dealing with this.
In the city centre, illegal occupation of disused buildings is rife, with many said to be controlled by criminal syndicates. Though it's South Africa's largest metropolis, Johannesburg is one of the world's most unequally distributed cities, grappling with poverty, unemployment and a housing crisis.
Next up, Niger's military rulers have ordered police to expel France's ambassador to the country after stripping his diplomatic immunity. It's a sign of worsening relations between Niamey and its former colonial ruler. Last Friday, Paris rejected a first move to expel the ambassador, saying only the president had the power to do so. On the 26th of July, President Mohamed Bazoum's personal guard arrested him and seized power. The West African bloc, ECOWAS, imposed sanctions and ordered the junta to hand back to civilian rule, warning it could intervene militarily if necessary. Next to Gabon, where the leaders of Wednesday's coup d'etat has said they will swear in a transitional leader on Monday. General Brice Oligui Nguema is the man. He's the head of the elite Republican Guard and led the overthrow of President Ali Bongo shortly after he was declared the winner of Saturday's election. The coup has been condemned by Western and African leaders. The African Union has suspended Gabon's membership with immediate effect.
Life is back to normal in Libreville a day after the military coup brought down President Ali Bongo Ondimba. Most residents, though, keep an eye on the two main TV stations which have been airing messages from the military now in power. On Thursday, their spokesman read a statement signed by their leader, Brice Oligui Nguema.
Le président de la transition.
The transitional president will be sworn in before the Constitutional Court on Monday, the 4th of September 2023 at the presidency. Signed by Brigadier General Oligui Nguema Brice.
While reading the general's message announcing his own swearing in, the military also tried to reassure people in Gabon and abroad. The internet is back on. Air travel will resume. They say Gabon will live up to all of its responsibilities. In another area of the capital, the opposition says that if the military want to be responsible, they need to put democracy back on track, complete Saturday's election vote count, and officially declare the opposition's candidate as the winner.
The report on the latest from the situation in Gabon, where the leaders of Wednesday's coup d'etat, as we've heard, have said they are to swear in a transitional leader on Monday. That man is General Brice Oligui Nguema, who was the head of the elite Republican Guard, which overthrew President Ali Bongo on Wednesday. Well, to talk more about this, we're now joined by Simon Pascal Alain Andy, founder and director of the HCCP Global Think Tank. So good evening. Thanks for joining us. First up, the opposition in Gabon, if we can start with them. It says that Gabon should be grateful for the coup d'etat. What's the likelihood that the two will work together? Where does the opposition stand here?
Yeah, I think that this is a matter of principle. What has happened in Gabon, it's a watershed moment. Either the international community decide to use the toolbox of the electoral system that has been in place for the longest time. There are three ways in which you can solve a post-electoral dispute. First, you can do a recount, the hanging chart that we've seen in Florida. Secondly, you can redo the elections in contentious areas. And thirdly, you can go to the judge. And in this instance, I think that a coup is not justified, and an additional time given to the military will not be justifiable, especially in the aftermath of the drumbeat of wars in the Sahel.
And the opposition has called on the junta precisely to allow the election to continue its course.
Yes.
Is anything likely to change here?
Yeah, I think that if there is maximum pressure applied on the new junta and then a combination of goodwill from from the ECAS, the Economic Commission of Central African States, and CEMAC, which has a habit of resolving this problem. You recall that in 2013 there was the invasion of Central African Republic by vicious rebels, but the economic community was able to hold special summits and come up with a transitional process with a head of state of the transition that actually paved the way for the return to constitutional legality in 2016. So you have there an institutional memory for dealing with, the unconstitutional assumption of power. And I think that in this instance, this coup is one too many, and then it should not be allowed to take place now. Africa needs to have principled leadership that can create a framework and a level playing field that allow the majority of people to flourish and reach their potential. And this constant coronavirus of, widespread chronic instability cannot be allowed to go on for much longer. And that is why I believe that we have an opportunity here, especially given the strong position taken by the international community in Niger to demand that, the basic principle of democracy be applied, because right now what we are witnessing is democracy.
I'd like to pick up on just what you said. This is, I believe, the 8th coup in the past 3 years in a former French colony.
Yes.
This obviously brings up conversation about the idea of France-Afrique, France's colonial past in Africa and its close ties to some of the regimes there. There are similarities between what we heard about a little earlier, the coup in Niger and the coup in Gabon. There are some similarities, but it's very different. What stands out to you?
Yeah, first of all, let's just deal with the lingo and the labeling. I don't think that these are former French colony. I think they are African countries that are independent in their own right, and they deserve to be called African countries, because we don't call the U.S. a former colony of the UK. So that, having said that, what I would say is that there are similarities and major differences. The DNA and the blueprint of coup d'etat in Niger has been that they're non-lethal. They rarely put in danger the civilian populations. That is why we were unable to actually invoke the responsibility to protect. I was in Nigeria in 2010 as chief technical advisor for UNDP. We managed a similar coup d'etat, and two things that we were able to do to reduce the length of the transition to 18 months and then give them an additional 6 months to organize free and fair election. And on the basis of those serious negotiations, sanctions were waived. And then additionally, what happened is that we have had 3 democratic elections that we work on those. So there is a possibility. But in Gabon, you have an entrenched government that has been there for so long and that has ramification and deeply rooted in the fabric of the body politics. So actually, the belief that just by a coup d'etat they will actually change something radically there, to me, is a little bit far-fetched. Another difference is that right now there is an opposition which is actually adamant on claiming victory. And there has not been on the table a sound proposal to be able to bridge the gap between all those parties and then to come up with a sound solution. But certainly the Central African region needs peace, needs stability, and for that to happen, it will take the coming together, the full gamut of resources, both from the international community and the international regulatory framework that was created in 1945, which is also crashing before our eyes because it's been so far ineffective in being able to provide solutions. But right now, I think that the time, we're still in time to be able to broker a sound solutions that aligns with the democratic principles. Otherwise, as I said, once again, this coronavirus of pandemic of never-ending widespread destabilization will continue, and we will end up having a democracy. As you know, the elections in Africa since 1965 have always been based on the fact that the winner takes all, and then tell the opposition that they to go screw themselves, to use a word. That's what John le Carré used in his latest novel. And then the opposition comes back from the bush in the form of a rebellion, and then we go from from the initial stage. But that
right.
back and forth has got to stop because the continent is now rising, is ascending to have a seat at the table, moving from the menu, which is the new framework.
Excellent to get your views there. That was Simon Pascal Alain Hardy, founder of the HCCP Global Think Tank.
Think and do tank.
Think and do tank.
Think and do tank.
And that's it for this edition on Eye on Africa. Up news, it's the international headlines. Stay with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
People and Profit, your business show that goes beyond the numbers and the corporate jargon. Understand everything related to major business stories and how economy affects our lives. People and Profit on France 24 and France24.com. They observe. They contact us. They report, film, photograph. They are the voice of the voiceless. Your eyes in the far-flung reaches of the world. The Observers, a network of 5,000 committed citizens working with France 24.
One of our observers in Côte d'Ivoire, Gaspard.
Amateur footage and testimonials checked by our journalists and broadcast weekly on The Observers, on France 24 and observers.france24.com.